Howdy, Michael, the Mercedes guy here, and we're working on a gorgeous 250 SE, 1967. This is a 108 body. That's a beautiful original car. However, the engine went kaput, and I put in a newly rebuilt engine. And I installed the original fan clutch. It was tight, but after a little bit of use, I got like 60 miles on this car, as you can see, that clutch has gotten loose. And hey, it's a $12,000 engine here. You don't want to take shortcuts. So we're putting a new fan clutch on there. Alrighty, so I've got an old fan clutch here and an old water pump just to explain something. The bolt that holds the fan clutch to the water pump, you never want to use an open end. If you round that bolt off, then you're going to have to pull your radiator, you're going to have to just chop off the fan to get a die grinder in there to grind off the head of the bolt. So you always use the box end. However, if you take a look at this, you'll see the box end will not fit on that head of that bolt. There just is not enough room. So you make yourself a wrench. You grind off the box end, about half of the material. Then you can get it on the head of the bolt. And you don't risk rounding off the head, which you don't want to do. Now, for ease of removal, this fan, the blades are not the same distance apart everywhere. There's two places where they're quite a ways apart. So you turn your fan so you got room to get your hand in there easily. And then get your special made wrench on the head of the bolt. Then you need to reach in and push hard on the fan belt that runs to the alternator, and then you can loosen. Otherwise, you'll be spinning the pulley on the belt. But if you put a bunch of pressure on that belt, it will actually hold it. Alrighty, I've jacked up the car. Now I want to point out, on a 108, same as a 113, 109 is a little different because air suspension, but conventional springs, you want to jack up your car on the subframe, which is just behind the pan. So don't confuse the subframe, the pan for the subframe, because you don't want to jack up on the pan. You want to jack on the subframe. Then to support the car, you want to support it right here where the breakaway strap hooks to the horn of the subframe. You don't want to put jack stands under the frame of the car, back where the jack ports are, when you have both tires off the ground. Because if you do that, then the entire weight, the engine, Your whole suspension, the tires, brakes, everything is being supported by your subframe mounts, which are up in here. And when you do that, you can break your subframe mounts. So if you're in a tire store getting new tires, do not let them put your car on a lift to do it. They'll lift up the body and break your subframe mounts. So I'm supporting this right here. I'm using a little piece of wood so that I don't bend the thinner metal right there. And I'm only using one jack stand because all I need is just a little safety here for me. So in removing the fan clutch, I can hook my remote starter to this purple wire. The purple wire goes to the solenoid of the starter. And I'll just drop my remote starter wire down there. And that way, instead of having to hop in the car and hit the starter switch, I can just use my push button. Okay, that's one wire of the the remote starter. The other wire goes to the positive of the battery. I'm not going to hook this up right now. Why? This is a standard transmission car. You've got to make sure that this thing is in neutral, which it now is. Plus, just for added safety, I'm going to put on this emergency brake like it's never been put on before. Okay, I've got my remote starter set up real quick. Okay. It turns the engine over, and that way I can access the other bolts. Okay, now the way you use a remote starter, rather than pushing on it, you have much more control by just tapping it. And I got a bolt right in line there. Yeah. Now, sometimes those things can be very tight. So you can do this. Use another end wrench and put the box end in like that. Then you've gained an extension to loosen the real tough bolts. And it's kind of handy to the cheater wrench that you use should be a size or 2 or 3 larger than the wrench you're using. Alright, so once you get your old fan clutch off, we've got our brand new fan clutch here. And I noticed something. This is a smaller diameter. So you can actually kind of get a regular box wrench on there, but still it is tapered here. So you do want to, even with this newer fan clutch, you want to use the ground down box end wrench. Now, replacing a fan clutch, you don't have to loosen the alternator belt. If you're very careful on removing the fan and the clutch, you can actually slide the bolt back in, and if you haven't touched that pulley or hit your remote starter with the fan off, the holes will still be lined up, and you'll be able to screw the bolts right in, saving a bunch of time. And so that's the way you do a fan clutch replacement.